So, some examples of what you can expect. This is based on Annex SL, and it's based on what is currently in the committee draft. I've tried to avoid sort of giving too much detail. Several reasons for that. Obviously, there is the copyright issue of the standard, but equally, I don't want to give the impression that everything is all done and dusted and that none of this is going to change. What I want to do is to give you a flavour for the way the standard is going to look. So the text at the top here, the organisation, first requirement 9001, 2015, the organisation has to determine the external and internal issues that are relevant to its purpose and that affect its ability to achieve the intended outcome of its XXX, in this case, quality management system. We need to understand the needs and expectations of relevant interested parties. That doesn't mean everybody. It doesn't mean any NGO that happens to have a vague interest in our business or in interfering in our business or wanting to lobby our business. But obviously, within the context of ISO 9001, the key interested party are the customers, not only the contractual customers, but also end users, retailers, possibly others involved in the supply chain, and very, very important interested party, regulators. And there may be others. That's up to the organisation to determine what is relevant for its business. We then move into the and again, I'm skipping a few. Not my intention to go 100% through the standard. The organisation shall establish, implement, blah 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 blah, the quality management system, including the processes needed and their interactions. Now, this is where we see that being the key to maintaining the process approach, not only in ISO 9001, but this is a common text from the Annex SL that is now embedded in all management system standards. In this clause, this is where we'll have sort of supercharged version of the current clause 4.1 of 9001, where we talk about essentially using the plan, do, check, act approach, where we don't use those words, to the managing the processes. Leadership. Persons in top management and other relevant management roles throughout the organisation shall demonstrate leadership. We recognise that in the past maybe that component of empowerment and motivation of the middle layers of management hasn't been all that it should have been, and so we want to put more emphasis on that. Management's commitment obviously remains a very, very important component. We emphasise the need to integrate the quality management system requirements into the organisation's business processes. It's not a bolt-on quality management system. It's part of the way the organisation works. And once again, this phrase comes up again. Making sure top management has the responsibility to make sure that the system achieves its intended outcomes. In other words, is providing confidence in the products that the organisation is producing. We then move on to the next one that I just want to pluck out a few little highlights. The organisation shall think about the context, shall think about the interested parties and determine what are the risks and opportunities that need to be addressed to make sure that the system can achieve its intended outcomes, to prevent undesired effects and to realise opportunities for improvement. The organisation shall evaluate the need to plan actions to address these risks and opportunities. In other words, that whole concept of preventive action by identifying risks, mitigating them, eliminating them or minimising them or reducing them to a level that is considered acceptable is now up front and at the beginning of the standard. Resources, the good old things that we're accustomed with, infrastructure, process environment, monitoring and measuring, and we now introduce a new set of requirements on knowledge management. Operational control, operational planning and control. Once again, we're talking about planning those processes needed to address the risks and opportunities, establish criteria, implement controls, keep documented information, and take action to mitigate any adverse effects as necessary. And it's here in Clause 8, the operations part, where most of the current ISO 9001 Clause 7 will be included. Things like customer-related processes, operational planning, control of external providers, which is what we used to know as purchasing. We're now talking about creation or change of product, which essentially incorporates what we used to call, we still do call, design and development from ISO 9001 2008. There have been some concerns expressed about that, and I'll come on to those in a minute. Product realization, monitoring and measurement, and non-conforming goods and services. Then we've got Clause 9, where we talk about the monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. We talk about taking action when necessary to address adverse trends or results before a non-conformity occurs. What is that? Well, I hope a good percentage of you will recognise that as being preventive action. We don't call it preventive action, mainly to simplify the language, and so in part so that you don't need to be a PhD in quality management to be able to understand what that actually means. Again, probable adders for Clause 9, customer satisfaction, data analysis, and greater emphasis on product conformity. And then finally, we have the clause on improvement. The jury is still out as to whether we are going to continue to use the phrase continual improvement, or whether we're just going to talk about improvement. There are different viewpoints on that. My personal viewpoint is that continual improvement, or Kaizen as we're accustomed to, is one component of improvement. That there has to be the ongoing, continual, small step improvement activities. But equally, we need to recognise that occasionally we need to make the breakthrough improvements. The kaikaku, as the Japanese call it, or the things like re-engineering the process, to really go back to the drawing board and improve things on a quantum jump rather than small step continual improvement. Again, as I say, the jury is out on that. I think we're all clear on what we want to achieve. The question is, how do we put that into words? Clearly, when there is a non-conformity, we have to control and correct it, deal with the consequences, take action to make sure it doesn't recur or occur elsewhere, determine the causes, implement action, review the effectiveness, and make changes to the management system if necessary. So I hope that's given you a little bit of a flavour for the way the new standard is going to look. In the final few minutes, I'd like to talk a little bit about what next. Well, what next immediately is that beginning Saturday, well, in fact, beginning this Friday, 2 days from now, Working Group 24 is meeting face-to-face in Porto, in Portugal. They will be, over the course of the next week, reviewing all the strategic level comments, all the things that I would call the showstoppers, where there is a significant level of concern about the things that we are doing from the users, from the member bodies from around the world. Disposition where possible of all comments. If it's a no-brainer and it's just a minor editorial comment, they will go ahead and change it. And define the path forward for what I would call the more sticky issues, the ones that there are diametrically opposed opinions on some of the issues. Within the next 4 or 5 months, that Working Group 24 will continue working electronically, video conferencing and so on, to develop the draft international standard, with a probable face-to-face meeting again in the sort of February timeframe next year to agree within the working group on the DIS text, taking into consideration every single comment that we've received against the committee draft. We're forecasting publication of the DIS for ballot and comment in April. That will close, that ballot and commenting period will close in time for us to have another face-to-face meeting, again with the possibility to further refine, further make adjustments. And April 2015, publication of the final draft international standard, which means it's all over by the shouting, and then things don't change in terms of the actual text until the formalities or the translations are made into the official item languages, and the standard will be published, hopefully on schedule in September 2015. Let me talk about some of the concerns and criticisms that we have. Of course, we're not going to satisfy all of the people all of the time. There are some who don't like or don't accept this idea of the harmonised approach to the Annex SL, the harmonised approach to the management system standards. There has to be some give and take on this. DC 176 has taken a significant lead on forming the consistent requirements. Obviously, we are the longest standing management system standard, and we have the most uses around the world. But equally, we have to have some give and take, and we have to make sure that what we are doing is consistent with the other management system standards that are around. We've heard concerns that some of the requirements are being watered down, that by trying to make sure the standard is more generic, we are actually making it more abstract and reducing the level of requirements to give confidence to interested parties that the needs and expectations are being met. Specifically, things like design and development and calibration, but there are others, and Working Group 24